Welcome back. We are here with our panel of experts. Joining me in studio, Derek Hawley, former Trump appointee at the Department of Transportation and member of Project 21. Amber Athey, Washington editor at The Spectator. Andrew Nags, CEO of Paysum Solutions International. And John Hines, One America's DC bureau chief. The Arizona Senate is continuing its mission to conduct a full forensic audit. They have been sued by their own county twice, defeated a request for a restraining order, and are now facing a county refusing to turn over the evidence and allow the audit to move forward. This week, the experts hired to conduct the audit received a letter threatening litigation if they go forward with the audit. Why all the opposition to a simple audit of an election if there was no fraud? John, what do you think?
Well, this is a very good question, and really this question, the difference between fraud and irregularities is kind of a gray line. And there seems to be a reason, you're right, that people are opposed to an audit in this particular county, in this jurisdiction. It's instructional to take a look at the only complete and total audit of ballots that has been done in the country since the election. It took place in Montana in a county called Missoula, and it's the only place where each and every ballot was examined. It was an entirely universal mail-in election, and it's instructional because Montana was not a swing state, it was not in contention, and yet approximately 6.33% of the ballots cast, 4,592 out of 72,491 votes cast totally, were illegal ballots that were filed and were counted. So you do the extrapolation of the math, and in a place like Maricopa and some of these other counties, that's, well, you just did it.
I'm doing it quickly.
120,000. That's potentially 120,000 votes that were illegal ballots cast in a county of that type. So it seems obvious, I think, if you extrapolate the results of the only total and complete ballot audit to a county like some of these in Arizona, you're going to come up with a lot of discrepancies.
Right, and the spread in Arizona is only 10,457. Amber, what do you think about this audit in Arizona?
Well, I think you raise a good point about how all of these attempts to silence people who talk about voter fraud or irregularities really speaks to the fact that it seems like there's a there. I mean, if you are calling people conspiracy theorists or shutting them off of big tech or preventing audits from taking place, then that would suggest to me that there's something there to find. I actually, a couple of weeks ago, interviewed John Eastman, who, of course, was on Trump's legal team. And I asked him plenty of tough questions. You know, I wanted him to address a lot of the mainstream criticism of the claims of voter fraud from the Trump campaign. And when the organization who organized that event, the Steamboat Institute, tried to put that on YouTube and Vimeo, the video was repeatedly taken down, and they actually had their account locked from posting new videos because they were accused of spreading misinformation. So this is a problem across the board where if you even mention the words voter fraud, regardless of what you say after, you're going to be shut down.
Yep. Georgia recently passed new legislation in an attempt to strengthen election integrity in the Peach State. This week, Biden's White House press secretary, Jen Psaki, discussed Georgia's new laws, saying they are built on a lie and that there was no voter fraud during the 2020 election.
I think it's important to remember the context here. The Georgia legislation is built on a lie. There was no widespread fraud in the 2020 election.
I don't think most Americans or Georgians agree with her. What do you think, Derek?
I don't agree either. And like you said, most don't. And the thing about it is, as Amber just alluded to, whenever you read something in the media, they always say, no voter fraud was found. They always preference that. When we know millions of Americans know that it took place. Yeah. And down in Georgia right now, it's an absolute shame what's happening, because these companies, these individuals, they did not take the time to read this bill. And even the President Biden, I mean, he stands up there right now and he says this is Jim Crow on steroids. I don't think he read it either. Because when you look at what's in the bill, everything is pretty standard. Even when he talks about the polls shutting down at 5 o'clock, well, people won't have a chance, working people won't have a chance to get out and vote. That's not true. They only changed, they put the language in the bill because initially it said during normal business hours. Right. And so now we're just saying from 9 to 5. But when the media gets a hold of it, it's blown up to the point where, like, oh my God, now they're not allowing people to vote. if they can't get there by the time the polls close. And
Right.
it's ridiculous.
It's just a narrative, and these companies that are leaving Georgia or moving, they're saying they're doing it for voter ID or for voter integrity. I have a hard time believing that because it's such a ridiculous reason to move a massively large corporation or an event like the All-Star game.
Baseball, the All-Star
Yeah.
game. And here we go into Colorado, where their laws are even more strict than Georgia.
Yeah.
And they're
So it's
supposed-
very disingenuous.
Disingenuous. And then Major League Baseball was supposed to honor Hank Aaron. That his home city in Atlanta. Well, that's not going to happen in Colorado. So
Right.
there's just a lot of different things that are just really, really bad with this situation.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Kamala Harris went to Oakland, California this week to participate in a small business listening session. Harris took the opportunity to promote those hit hardest by the shutdown, the banks.
Knowing the incredible relationship that our community banks, this fancy word is CDFIs, I call it community banks, that community banks have with our small businesses.
She's really hitting this hard, Andrew. What do you think about her efforts to really save the banks? Because she was doing this last week as well.
Yeah, I think it's too obvious to say that the banks represent a significant donor population for them. I think really what the issue is here is not so much what she's saying in Oakland, but where she's not going. She's not going to the border. Isn't I?
I was just going to say, I don't think there's banks on the border.
And she's avoiding that because she does not want the stain of this disaster that's coming together down there. But that is really what the story is to me, that she's crisscrossing the country and making zero stops in the areas that really need leadership, which is the southern border.
John, what do you think about the Biden administration, particularly Kamala Harris, because she's really been the one out front pushing to support banks, and she refers to them a couple different ways, like financial institutions and minority-owned financial institutions, which apparently helps. Why do you think they're pushing banks so hard and neglecting the actual crisis and bigger issues that Americans actually care about?
Well, I think that they're just trying to change the focus. They're trying to change the story any way they can from the border to something else, anything else. And so they're talking about banks and CDFIs, community development financial institutions, what they potentially can do.
That's another name, yeah.
Reaching out to, I presume, lower income areas. I think that's what they're trying to do, is change the conversation, change the story a little bit, deflect and obfuscate and distract.
Amber, do you think that Kamala Harris is distracting from the issue on the border?
I think she definitely is, otherwise she would have been down there already. And this also points to another fact, which is that the Democratic Party is becoming the party of corporations. And Kamala Harris is a phony progressive, right? She claimed to run as this far left. She was supposed to be the progressive to Joe Biden's moderate. And now that she's in office, she is making very clear who she is and who the Democratic Party is, which is the party of big business and banks.
That seemed to get your attention, Derek.
What got my attention when she said phony.
Yeah.
Because that's what a lot of people think of her in the black community. And so she's just not she's not a genuine person.
Right.
And phony comes across. That's why I chuckled when you said that.
All right, yeah, that was a funny reaction. I wish we had that. When we return, we'll discuss the U.S. Supreme Court handing a win to Google. We'll be right back.